Hi, my name is Anjay, and I'm going to elaborate on the tool that I built in AWS uh, for the project called Blockchain Transaction Analytics. The goal of this project was to build a solution that collects, stores, and analyzes blockchain transactions, specifically for tracking smart contracts, contract events like bids in a blockchain-based auction system. Uh, the solution leverages AWS services like IAM, Draw, AWS Lambda, Amazon Data Firehose, Amazon S3, Amazon Athena, and finally Amazon Event Bridge to in order to retrieve the blockchain data from external sources and finally analyze it. So I started off with creating an IAM role. So yeah, creating an IAM role was essential for laying the foundation for the entire workflow in terms of all the permissions policies that were needed for a smooth transition between various modules that are used within AWS. For example, like full access of the Amazon Data Firehose, and the policy that is called Amazon Kinesis Firehose, because that's what it was called prior. The name changed from Kinesis Firehose to Amazon Data Firehose recently, and added like two policies that and added a Lambda basic execution role policy, and it was QuickSight Athena access as well. Everything else was within the default settings. Nothing out of the blue in terms of configuration of this particular role. And later configured, later created an S3 bucket. Just created a empty S3 bucket with default configurations for the most part. Nothing. This is the data that came after running the Amazon Lambda function, and now coming to the Data Firehose. This was essential module in terms of streamlining, in terms of processing the data that was coming from external source, which is the Blockchain Explorer and the API that was needed for establishing the connection between Blockchain Explorer and AWS. And configuration simple enough. Added the S3 bucket that I created as a destination, and everything else was standard configuration, connected it to and most important part, other part, it's the module that I had to build, I had to use to build something that pulls that creates the data that's needed to do all kinds of processing within AWS, was AWS Lambda function. And this code required a few packages which were not easy to build within AWS, which is why I wrote the code in an external IDE and imported it into the Lambda function over here with index. And yeah, this is the code I have. And in terms of configuration, added some constant variables as environment variables. I mean, values that won't change and makes things, and so in order to capture the blockchain data using AWS, needed to connect Blockchain Explorer using an API that I created, and used the Ethereum mainnet and in the ethers explored the right for the right token, and found the Ether USD token, and this token contract and contract ABI was needed. It was essential for extracting the transaction data from for the Ethereum blockchain, and those are I added the contract ABI in the code itself, but the other variables were within the configuration, and had to connect the code to a Firehose too, because that's where the data was coming from. So Firehose was essentially the filter, the data processor between the external source, which is the blockchain data in the web, and the S3 bucket, which has the data in JSON format, and tested this code to see if it was working, and created a test event and tested. And it worked, and that's how I was getting the data in different files. So I'm essentially getting data for each day. Then because I configured the bucket to enable bucket versioning. Just makes it easy to track data that's coming at different times. This is the JSON file. Comes and download it. That's how the blockchain data looks. Multiple transactions. And Athena is the final module. I created a database and created a table. It does all the that will store all the queries that I built, and run it. I'm getting blockchain data in a table format, and yeah, all kinds of data that I can get by querying. The average and contracts with the highest value. And yeah, so on. Thank you. Finally used Amazon EventBridge scheduler. Amazon EventBridge scheduler is it's a serverless scheduler that allows you to create, run, and manage tasks from one central managed service. Essentially, assists me with running any code or module periodically based on how I configure it, so that I don't have to manually run the code. So figured the Lambda function that I created needs run once in a while to get new data, and that's the reason for I built a scheduler with a default configuration for the most part, and the target was the blockchain analytics database, but the service that I needed for a weekly run was the Lambda. So yeah, that's how I